Here's a number that sounds made up. In 1997, this country lost roughly half of its entire economy. Not to a war, not to a natural disaster, but to a get-rich-quick scheme. A scam. The kind of thing that arrives in your spam folder. 2/3 of the population handed their life savings to companies that were quietly nothing but elaborate cons. And when those companies collapsed, the country didn't just go broke. It fell apart. The government fell. The army's weapons depots were looted by ordinary citizens. Around 2,000 people died. For a few months in 1997, a European country on the edge of Italy simply stopped being a functioning state. Now here's the second number that sounds made up. In 2025, that same country welcomed over 12 million foreign tourists, more than 4 times its own population. It posted some of the fastest economic growth in all of Europe. Its coastline got compared to Greece and Croatia. Investors started circling. It's days away from the final stage of joining the European Union, same country. Less than 30 years apart, from armed anarchy and a looted state to the hottest new economy on the Mediterranean. This is Albania, and its story is one of the most extraordinary economic comebacks anywhere on Earth. But underneath the glossy beaches and the record-breaking tourist numbers, there's a quieter and far stranger problem hollowing the whole thing out. Because as the money pours in, the people are pouring out. And once you understand why, you'll understand something uncomfortable about what a boom actually measures. To get there, you have to start in the rubble. So let's talk about the most insane financial disaster you've probably never heard of. Rewind to the early 1990s. Albania has just crawled out of one of the most brutal, isolated communist dictatorships in the entire Eastern Bloc. And isolated is not a figure of speech here. For decades, under a regime so paranoid it built hundreds of thousands of concrete bunkers across the countryside in case the whole world invaded, Albania was sealed shut. Private property barely existed. Owning a foreign book could get you in trouble, never mind owning a foreign bank account. The market economy wasn't something Albanians distrusted. It was something most of them had genuinely never seen. Then the regime collapses. And overnight, millions of people are dropped into raw capitalism with no map, no real banks, no regulators, and no lived experience of how any of it is supposed to work. This isn't a story about stupid people. It's a story about an entire nation handed a complex, predatory financial system the week after being let out of a sealed room and told to swim. Into that vacuum walked the pyramid schemes. Companies started popping up offering interest rates that were, frankly, hilarious. Not 5%, not 10, some were promising to double your money in a matter of months. Picture that for a second. You've spent your whole life under a regime that told you money was basically evil, you've never owned a stock or read a balance sheet, and a respectable-looking company in your town is calmly promising to turn your savings into twice your savings by autumn. Of course you said yes. Almost everyone did. And in a country where nobody had any experience with how investing actually works, where the whole concept of a financial market was brand new, those promises didn't sound like a warning sign. They sounded like the reward for finally being free. And there's one thing that made Albania uniquely vulnerable, and you cannot understand this story without it. Albanian culture runs on something called besa. It's an ancient code, a word of honor, a pledge that is taken with deep seriousness. You trust the person who gives you their word. You don't demand to see the paperwork, because demanding paperwork insults the bond. So when a neighbor, a cousin, a respected local figure told you this investment was real, when they put their own money in to prove it, that wasn't a sales pitch. That was besa. The very thing that held Albanian society together, that deep cultural reflex to trust a personal promise, was the exact lever the schemes used to pry open the entire nation's savings. So the money flooded in. People sold their houses, their cattle, their cars, and poured the proceeds into these companies. At the peak, the schemes had swallowed deposits worth around $1.2 billion, nearly half the entire country's economic output. Almost everyone was in. It stopped being an investment and became a national religion. Why work when your money was supposedly doubling on its own? Some people genuinely quit their jobs to sit and wait for the returns. But a pyramid scheme has one fatal design flaw. It doesn't actually invest in anything. There's no business underneath it, no factory, no profit. The only thing paying the old investors is the cash from new investors. It's a machine that runs purely on more, forever. And the moment the flow of new money slows down even slightly, the whole structure has nothing left to stand on. In late 1996, the new money started to dry up. And one by one, starting in early 1997, the schemes began to default, then collapse, then detonate. And when Albanians realized their entire life savings had just evaporated, that the houses they'd sold and the futures they'd bought were simply gone, the country didn't file complaints. It exploded. Riots tore through the cities. People accused the government of being in on it, which in some cases wasn't far off. The state lost control so completely that protesters broke open military armories and helped themselves to the weapons inside. Soldiers and police simply deserted. Foreigners were evacuated by helicopter. The prime minister resigned, then the president. Around 2,000 people died in the chaos. A multinational force had to be sent in to restore basic order. An entire country had been talked into setting itself on fire, one honest handshake at a time. That is the hole Albania had to climb out of. Not just an empty treasury, a shattered banking system, a traumatized population, a state that had literally collapsed, and a national distrust of finance so deep it would take a generation to heal. By any reasonable expectation, that should have been the end of the story. A cautionary tale filed under countries that never recovered. Except Albania did something remarkable. It climbed. Slowly at first. The schemes were finally banned. The banking sector was rebuilt almost from scratch, this time with actual rules, actual supervision, and eventually sold off to serious foreign banks that knew what they were doing. The Bank of Albania was given real teeth. Brick by painful brick, over the 2000s and 2010s, the country reassembled a functioning economy. And then, in the last decade, it found its golden ticket, the coastline. Albania, it turns out, had been sitting on one of the last undiscovered stretches of the Mediterranean this whole time. Dramatic cliffs, turquoise water, ancient ruins, beaches that looked exactly like the Greek islands next door, but cost a fraction of the price. For decades, the isolation of the communist years and the chaos of the 90s had kept the world out. Now the world showed up with a suitcase, a phone full of beach photos, and a deep need to find somewhere on the Mediterranean that Instagram hadn't fully ruined yet. And the numbers are genuinely staggering. In 2025, Albania welcomed around 12.5 million foreign visitors. A country of barely 2.5 million people hosted more than 4 times its own population in a single year. Tourism revenue rocketed past 5 billion euros. The sector now makes up over a quarter of the entire economy, a historic high. The economy grew by nearly 4% in 2025, outpacing almost all of wealthy Western Europe, which was busy crawling along at barely 1%. Government debt, once a millstone, fell below 60% of the economy, and the country opened the final cluster of negotiations to join the European Union with a real target of membership by 2030. On paper, this is a triumph, the comeback of the century. From a looted, anarchic, bankrupt state to the breakout economic star of the Balkans in less than 3 decades. The kind of story you put in a textbook under How a Nation Rebuilds. So why is the country quietly emptying out? Because there's a number nobody puts on the tourism brochure. Between the last 2 censuses, Albania's population fell by 14%. It dropped from around 2.8 million people to just 2.4 million in a little over a decade. Hundreds of thousands of people gone. Not in a disaster. They left. They packed up and moved to Italy, to Greece, to Germany in search of the one thing the booming economy back home still couldn't offer them: a decent wage and a future. And this is the trap hiding underneath the miracle. Tourism is a fantastic engine for growth, but it's a particular kind of engine. It creates a lot of jobs, but they tend to be seasonal, low-paid service work. Waiting tables, cleaning rooms, running a beach bar for 4 frantic months of summer. Picture being young and ambitious in Albania right now. Your country is genuinely on the rise. The energy is real. The beaches are full. The EU is finally at the door. And yet the most rational thing you can do, the thing your own besa-bound family will often encourage, is to leave. Go work in Germany, send money home, build your actual career somewhere your skills get paid what they're worth. The country is succeeding and exporting its own young people at the very same time. The boom and the exodus aren't contradictions. They're happening in the same breath. And the money those emigrants send back has quietly become load-bearing. Remittances, the cash that Albanians abroad mail home to their families, make up around 15% of the entire economy. Sit with that. One of the country's single largest sources of income is its own people, working in someone else's country. Albania's most valuable export isn't chrome or textiles or even the beaches. In a very real sense, it's Albanians, and it doesn't get to keep them. There's a familiar fragility here too. An economy leaning this hard on tourism is an economy betting everything on outsiders choosing to keep showing up. A bad season, a regional shock, a few summers where the crowds drift to a cheaper coast somewhere else, and a quarter of the economy wobbles. Albania has swapped one kind of dangerous concentration for another. In the 90s, almost everyone's wealth was tied up in the same handful of fraudulent schemes. Today, a huge slice of the economy is tied up in the same single season, the same stretch of sand, the same hope that next summer is as good as the last. The country traded a financial bubble for a beach. It doesn't even fully tax the boom it has. A huge share of the tourism economy runs informally, off the books. Rooms rented quietly, cash changing hands, businesses operating outside the system. The state is estimated to lose tens of millions of euros a year in taxes it can't collect from its own biggest industry. The money is genuinely flowing. It's just that a great deal of it slips through the government's fingers on the way past, waving politely as it goes. So let's go back to where we started. From the ashes of the most catastrophic scam in modern European history, Albania built one of the continent's most dynamic economies. Is it a success story? The honest answer is yes, and that's exactly the problem. The recovery is completely real. The growth is real. The tourists are real. The long climb out of 1997 is one of the genuine economic achievements of our time, and nobody should wave it away. A country that was looting its own army barracks in 1997 is opening EU accession talks in 2026. That is not a small glow-up. But a country can post brilliant numbers and still be slowly losing the thing that actually matters, its people. Because a booming economy and a livable country are not the same thing. GDP measures how much activity is happening within a nation's borders. It says nothing about whether the young, the skilled, and the ambitious can see a future worth staying for. Albania's charts are pointed at the sky, and its people are quietly buying one-way tickets in the other direction. A nation can be a fantastic place to visit for a week and a frustrating place to build a life. The tourist on the beach and the emigrant at the airport pass each other on the same afternoon, walking in opposite directions, both completely right. That's the real lesson hiding in Albania's beautiful comeback. The country survived the scam that nearly destroyed it. The harder test isn't the disaster. It's the success. It's whether a place can grow fast enough and pay well enough and build deep enough to convince its own children that the future is here, on this coast, and not on a plane heading west. Survive the catastrophe, and your reward is the right to face the quieter, slower problems standing politely behind it. And underneath all of it, in 1997 and right now, sits the same fragile, invisible thing every one of these stories keeps circling back to: money. The promises we make with it, the trust we pour into it, and what happens to a whole society when that trust suddenly turns out to be built on nothing at all. That's the thread we keep pulling. And next time, we follow it all the way down.